Hi guys, it's Dylan from Bijou Diamond Jewellery in London with another watch video, and today we're going to do something slightly different. We're just going to have a discussion and I'm going to address the elephant in the room, which is in the watch industry we've seen a little bit of a price correction at the moment. So we're going to take a look at why that is, what the price correction is, how much it has been, and where I see things going in the future. So as with all my watch videos, let's go back in time really and look at where these price changes have come from. And really it originates back in kind of 2018, 2019, which is when we saw a really kind of new audience that started to buy watches. It was the early starts of a new audience buying new watches actually. And it was because watches had performed so brilliantly, not only as something you can wear and enjoy, but most importantly for those people as an investment. Watches now were just another way for you to store and park your money. They were a currency, especially Rolex, like a Submariner. It was literally tradable like a currency. It was just incredibly easy to chop in and out of. Anywhere in the world, it would be worth something. So, and generally had the same value everywhere you go, which is brilliant. So it attracted a new audience. There was a new audience of people that weren't buying watches just to wear. They were buying them actually to stick in the safe and leave there and never actually wear once. So around 2018, 2019, definitely 2019, we saw a real spike in sales from those type of people and therefore a spike in prices because the demand was going up in watches, and that in turn obviously attracted more people because we'd seen obviously an increase in price, which just justified it and made people feel even more comfortable about investing in watches, which was definitely a new audience for us. We weren't used to that style of people buying watches, purely just to put in the safe and hope they go up in value. But it's great because it added a second dimension to a watch for everyone, basically. In 2019, though, we saw some really massive growth. Some watches doubling in price or doing exceptionally well. And as we ventured into early parts of 2020, we saw definitely some fantastic increases in prices. And then the lockdown came, or lockdowns came, and the whole world changed a little bit in terms of how we bought things and definitely considered how we spent our money, and luxury items were definitely not the thing we wanted to buy at that time. Many people didn't have jobs or were on reduced pay. So the amount of available money for someone was less. Then that changed, and actually throughout the end of 2020 or summer 2020, people's disposable income actually increased. So people started to invest, which was brilliant. They weren't going out, they weren't spending lots of money on travel. They were at home looking for alternative ways to kind of spend their money and save their money and invest their money, and watches was definitely that. So mid to late 2020, we saw a huge spike again in prices, and prices continue to rocket since that point. And in 2021 was when we saw the biggest increase in prices in the history of watches, and early this year, prices just went absolutely insanely high. It's interesting to know why, and I will come on to that in a little bit later on the video. There are a few different factors that have been a cause of those increases in prices. But I just wanted to give you some comparisons of prices at the peak, approximately prices at the peak for three of the main brands, Audemars Piguet, Patek Philippe and Rolex, from the core watches that they sell, and then what the prices are now, as opposed to what they were at the peak around a month or two ago. So yeah, probably 2 months ago. So let's take a look at Patek Philippe prices at the peak, and I'm just going to look, like I said, at the core kind of pieces that do the best. So we're going to start with the Aquanaut in steel 5167A. At the peak was around £100,000 for a 2022 unworn example. All the watches I'm going to mention from every brand are assuming a 2022 unworn example. So yeah, that was around 100 grand for a very, very good unworn example 2022. Sometimes went for more depending on the set, if it was double sealed, single sealed. Moving on to the 5980 with the bracelet, so the full rose gold 5980, that went up to just under 400,000 at the peak, and was going for more again if it was double sealed or single sealed, but say around 380 to 400,000 for a 2022 unworn example. 5711 in rose gold, was looking up at around £350,000, sometimes more, again, 450, depending if it was double or single sealed. And then £240,000 for the steel version of the 5711. So, I mean, just insane prices when you think about it. The 5711 in steel, for example, is a 20-something thousand pound watch, late 20s or mid to late 20s for retail price, and that's selling for mid to late £200,000. So yeah, £240,000, sometimes higher depending on set, definitely near 300 if it was double sealed. So just exceptional prices. Rolex prices also did excellently. Steel Daytona with the white dial looking up at just under £50,000 at the peak, pretty incredible. The Day-Date 40 in rose gold with the green dial went up to around 80, 85, 90,000 pounds, probably around 85 really, for a good unworn 2021 example. And then the Platinum Daytona with the baguette dial went up to around the £200,000 mark at the peak. Audemars Piguet though has seen the biggest boost in prices over the last probably year or two, which was interesting because for a while they were kind of lagging behind a lot of the other brands. We all assumed that they would catch up at some point, and they definitely have. So 15202, so that's the extra thin and steel with the blue dial, that went up for around 140,000. Around 90,000 for a 26331 ST, which is the 41mm chronograph in steel with a blue dial. Sometimes they went for more than that, but around the 95,000 pound mark. And then even for a 37mm Royal Oak in steel, there's the 15450, which has a retail price of under £20,000, was going up for 65,000. So crazy increases. About a month ago, we saw, or maybe a little bit more than a month ago, we saw prices starting to falter a little bit. They kind of were a little bit unsettled. They weren't increasing in the same insane accelerated speed that they were, in the previous year, and that was the first time we saw that, for growth to slow like that. So growth massively slowed down to a complete halt, in fact, and actually started to dip in price. And in the last month or two, we've really seen a major price correction. Not major, depending on the brand, quite a considerable price correction. But the most important thing for people to understand is that overall in the year, so if you look back a year ago today, the prices are still considerably up compared to what they are now. So even though there was a small correction, everyone has done exceptionally well on all their investments if they've bought watches for an investment purposes. So let's take a look at some prices now. So again, looking back through the same list, and I'll compare the prices back and forth. £100,000 before at the peak for a 2022 Aquanaut in steel, now looking at around 75 to 80,000 pounds for the same example. So we've seen around a 20% drop there. In general, we've seen around 20% across the market for this little mini correction. Moving on to our 5918 rose gold with the bracelet, now selling for around £300,000 as opposed to the £380,000. Again, you can still get examples for up to 380 now that are double sealed or single sealed. So yeah, it depends on the condition, but yeah, around £300,000. So we've seen 80 grand drop there. 5711 in rose gold, now at around £240,000 versus the 350 that it was peaking at before. Again, you could still get examples that are over the £300,000 mark if they were double or single sealed. 5711 in steel has come down quite a bit from 240 to £160,000 on average now for a new unworn example, or as new as possible. Again, don't forget, prices a year ago were significantly less than the prices that we're seeing right now. So this is definitely, not bad in the year. It's just gone down a little bit from the peak that we saw about 2 months ago. These are definitely rebounding though. So these prices that I'm telling you now are the current market prices of these watches. The prices did in fact go lower than this, but they've already started to climb back up again. So that's brilliant to see that they've rebounded already, dipped down, already on the way back up again. So it's going to be interesting to see where they're going to climb up to. Moving on to Rolex again, just to do a comparison. The steel Daytona with the white dial, we're looking at around £38,000 now, as opposed to the previous price of around £48,000. So we've seen around a 10 grand drop. Not crazy, definitely something to consider. 20% drop again, but not insane. If I compare that price to what this watch was going for a year ago, for a same example, brand new, if we're looking at £38,000 now, back around a year ago, we were looking at around 22, 23, possibly even 24, but probably around 22. So, significant rise in value, almost double in a year, despite the fact that it's dropped back down. Moving on to our day date 40 in green, in rose gold, or with a green dial in rose gold, was up at kind of 80, 85,000. Now we're down at 65,000. Again, not crazy drop, definitely a good chunk of the price of the watch. And then the diamond baguette dial, platinum Daytona, was up at around £200,000 before, now down at 160. So we are seeing a little bit of a drop, but nothing crazy really from Rolex. Definitely not as much really as Patek Philippe. AP though has moved the least in price of all the brands. If we look at the extra thin, trading before at 140, now around 125. So only a £15,000 drop there, less than 10%. No, around 10% in fact. So that's half the decrease that we're seeing from the other brands. The 26331 ST, which is the 41mm chronograph in steel, the blue dial, now looking at around 85,000. Before it was at 90, 95,000. So really barely any drop again, 10% there. And then for the 15450 ST, which is the blue dial steel 37mm Royal Oak, was up at 60, 65,000, now at 55,000. So barely any drop there at all, which is great to see that AP has kind of held out. Overall, great to see that all the brands have rebounded. Prices did dip below these prices, specifically for Patek Philippe, not so much the others, but we are definitely already seeing the prices rebounding and going up lots and lots again already. Let's take a look now that we've looked at figures. Why did they go up so quickly back in 2019, 2020 and 2021, and definitely the beginnings of this year? I mean, it stems off my first kind of thing that I discussed, which was about that new audience of buyers in watches, that new audience that we hadn't seen before, that came along and was just buying watches purely for an investment purpose. And what that creates is a little bit of volatility in the market, because people are buying and selling and trading these watches like just assets, or like a stock market, or even like a currency. So that adds volatility as people start to flood the market. When they sell them, the price goes down as they become more scarce and difficult to get a hold of because people are buying them all up. The price goes up. So it definitely has influenced the market quite a lot, having these types of buyers compared to what we are used to, a couple of years ago where these guys weren't around. And these buyers weren't buying watches for the enjoyment and to, really enjoy the piece and wear the piece, which is exactly what I was saying there. They were trading these watches. They sat in the safe and they meant nothing to them other than, a way to make money. So that's a very different mentality to the majority of people that normally buy watches, who normally keep a watch for minimum 5 years. So that definitely added to the volatility, the constant trading. Another thing that affected the market too is that lots of these buyers panic sold. So if they saw a little drop in price of the watches, or prices slowing down, they panic sold, and that definitely then flooded the market massively with watches, which then drove down prices even more. And in turn, that scared lots of people and spooked lots of people, and they sold their watches at, or listed their watches at, even lower prices, driving prices down even more. And it was just a perpetuating process of it continuing, making it very, very volatile, fluctuating prices all the time. And that's essentially what we've seen in this last month, or month or two, is really just an emphasized exaggeration of that. Another factor that we've seen that has majorly influenced the market is the massive influx of dealers, inverted commas dealers, which is an extension of these people that have started to buy and sell watches themselves. They now are calling themselves dealers. They have no jewelry or watch backgrounds often, so they don't really understand the market in terms of, or the industry as a business, and how the industry has been run for all these years. They come into it with a very different mentality. There's nothing wrong with that, but it definitely has disrupted the market as a result. And the problem is that when people are buying watches, they don't always favor, unless they're strong clients like some of our clients that will only ever come to us no matter what the price is, they will always buy from us. There's a loyalty there. What watches sometimes tends to do, or people tend to do with watches, is it doesn't matter where you buy it. That Daytona is the same from Sam in China as it is in Joseph in Australia. You know, it really doesn't matter where you buy it from. It's the same watch. It's made in the same factory. So if Sam's offering it for 10 grand less, you're going to take it from Sam. And that, as a result, means that prices, or new people that are buying watches, are going to go to these dealers that are just going to offer the best, cheapest price they possibly can, which is totally understandable from a buyer's perspective. But as a result, it definitely imbalances the market between people that are actually professionals in that industry and people that are just really chancing it and starting a new kind of side hustle. So these new dealers, in inverted commas, definitely have created or added to the volatility of the market or the watch industry majorly. Lots of them have gone bust or have stopped trading altogether because they've lost so much money, or their watches that they bought into have lost too much money for them to be able to come out of safely. A few of them, again, didn't understand the industry properly, didn't have the right backing, and got themselves stuck in some situations that were very unfavorable, weren't able to deliver watches, lost clients' money, and because they have no backing, they're unable to then refund the client, and the client's without their money and no watch. So there were a few people that got in serious trouble in the industry and have since left. And lots of these dealers, these new dealers, have left because this kind of hype or craziness around watches has slowed down, it has spooked them off, and they've moved on to other things, which is good in some ways. I feel like that will reduce the volatility and make the playing field a little bit more level, and help buyers really understand and make sure they're also a bit safer when they're buying watches, that they know hopefully who they're buying from is a safe dealer to buy from. Overall, what do I think is going to happen to prices in the near future? Well, we've already seen that prices have gone up since that dip around a month ago, which is great to see. And I think the prices will continue to go up. I don't see why they won't. I think they may eventually, in the next year, probably at least, reach the prices that we saw at the peak. Things maybe are just slowing down a little bit. The hype is, settled, and people are hopefully just going to buy a bit more smartly and calmly. And we're always going to have this investment edge to watch buying now. There will be always that market now of people buying watches purely for an investment purpose, which there is nothing wrong with. It's great to have them as an additional part of the market, and it definitely helps those that maybe are hesitant about buying a Rolex, for example, for 10 grand. It's definitely a nice thought to know that, hey, you can buy that watch, you can enjoy it, and in a couple of years' time, it probably will have made an extra 50% on this price, which is fantastic. So that concludes my video on what's happening to prices. I am going to do another video looking at what I feel a recession may do to the industry as well, which is obviously a looming presence at the moment as a result of the world economy, which is always interesting to look at how that will affect our industry. So I would like to do a video discussing that. So let us know in the comments if you find that interesting. Let us know in the comments if you've got any notes you want to add about why you think prices went up and down so quickly. Do you think they'll continue to go up? And let us know what other videos you'd like us to do. And as always, if you're interested in any of the watches mentioned during this video, then please don't hesitate to contact us. Our details are in the description, and also at the end of the video. It'd be a pleasure to help you out however we can.